Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Stephanie Worthley, and I'm the K through 12 Guidance Department Chair. I'd like to welcome you all to our first ever freshman parent Zoom. In a typical year, we usually host a freshman parent coffee in the morning, right about this time of year, in person, live and in person. And obviously this year, with things being what they are, very different, in this different atmosphere that we're in, we thought the Zoom would be the best platform going forward. We wanted to make sure to provide you all with some information, what your sons and daughters are going through here this year, just provide you some information about what to expect over the next 4 years of high school, what you can expect from our office, and so forth. So I'd like to introduce today the guidance staff. Actually, let me share my screen real quick. Sorry about that. One sec, share my screen. You can see our PowerPoint as we go forward. All right. All right, hopefully folks can see that. Our agenda for today. Our agenda for today, as I said, I'm going to introduce our guidance counselors, want to make sure that all parents out there know who their sons and daughters are going to work with over the next 4 years. We're going to talk a little bit about how to actually access your guidance counselor. We want to share information with you folks about graduation requirements and transcripts and GPA. All of these things we will talk with your sons and daughters about over the next couple of years, what to expect in high school. But we really also want to try to provide you folks with some supports and some resources to help your child navigate certainly this year in this hybrid model that we're in, but also high school in general. So to introduce the guidance counselors to you, so as I said, my name is Stephanie Worthley. So I work with students' last names A through BO. Elise DeLuzio works with students' last names BR through E. Ann Lodge works with last names F through K. Amanda Patton works with students' last names L through P. And Eric Ornberg works with students' last names Q through Z. So a little different than that of the middle school, where a guidance counselor had the whole class for all 3 years of high school. We will work with students during all 4 years of their high school career. So each guidance counselor works with students from grades 9, 10, 11, and 12 on their caseloads. But we do break things up alphabetically. So hopefully your son and daughter will have the same guidance counselor for all 4 years of high school. Also joining us today is Russ Becker, and he is our adjustment counselor, and he will tell you a little bit about his role and what that looks like here at the high school. In our office, Laura Keene is our school psychologist. Her office is housed in the guidance suite as well. And she started last year here, and she is a great resource for students here as well. Our first person you would see when you walked into the office is Sue Curtis, our guidance secretary. Again, a great resource, especially for our students if they don't know where to go or who to ask questions to. Mrs. Curtis is often kind of that first line of defense to talk with. And then also another great support staff we have is Dr. Worthley, Dave Worthley. He is our director of the RISE program. He's our director of social emotional learning. I'm sure many of you have received emails from him over the year about social emotional learning opportunities and webinars available to parents and just some community outreach. But if you're not familiar with our RISE transition program, it's a great opportunity for students to access some supports should they need it, if they have extended absences from school or something where they are required some extra supports. The RISE transition program is great for that as well. So as we go through today's presentation, one of the things I wanted to just start with, and I've started with this the past few years, and even though this year is very different in this hybrid model, our Challenge Success program that we're part of really is still kind of the forefront of our culture and the things that we're trying to do here. So if you're not familiar with Challenge Success, it's an organization that partners with Stanford University out in California. And in 2018, Medfield High School partnered with them and sent a team of staff members and teachers out to Stanford for a long weekend, really to start focusing on creating a healthy climate for students academically, emotionally, where students feel supported, where they feel like they can take risks, they can learn, be okay with making mistakes, and really trying to create a climate and a culture where the focus is really on student well-being. So I love this article from Challenge Success, and I really think it resonates here for you folks as freshman parents, because you're about to embark on the next 4 years of high school, and especially if you're a first-time parent, it's an interesting 4 years. You may get some resistance from your child to want to help. They're going to go through all sorts of emotions through this year. So what are some tips to really help your child thrive this year, but really the next couple of years of high school? So I'm just going to quickly kind of go through this, and obviously you can read it on your screen as well. But this article from Challenge Success gives some tips about things to talk to your child about, ways to ask questions, and just some techniques and supports to put in your home. So the first thing, ask your child about their day, ask them if they've learned anything interesting or what they're really enjoying about school, instead of first thing, how did you do on your math test? Oftentimes I've seen, if that happens to a student, they roll their eyes, say fine, and walk away. So try to think of some questions that you might be able to ask your child that can engage them in conversation. Resist the urge to correct errors. High school is a great place for students to make mistakes. This is where they can safely, make some mistakes, maybe fall a little bit, and then have some support to help bring your student back up. So try to resist the urge to help your child with some of their errors. Really try to focus on learning, and how that's more important than grades. And I know that that's a big one, and that's hard for a lot of our students. Grades certainly are important to our students, and I totally respect that and understand that. But we also want to make sure kids are learning materials for the sake of learning, and not just for the grade. Make time. Challenge Success talks about this a lot. Make time for PDFs. So it's playtime, downtime, and family time. There is a lot of research out there that those three things are really so important for students' overall well-being. Technology, we've talked a lot about technology over the past few years, and it's a little bit harder right now because of this model we're in, where everybody is on screens a lot. And I totally understand that, but it's also so important to have a break from that technology. So whether it's meal times or whatever might work best for your families, but to try to put the phones away and keep the distractions to a minimum. We're going to talk today about collaborating with your child's teachers. This is really important, and we want to empower you all to reach out to teachers should you have questions. This is a partnership here. We really again, want to empower you folks to reach out to teachers and feel comfortable in doing so. Again, fight the urge to bring in your child's forgotten homework or whatever it might be. This is where students are really going to learn some resiliency by having small failures in their life. And as I said, high school is a really good time for that. It's a safe learning environment to do so. Challenge Success also talks a lot about sleep. We did a survey probably about a year or so now, and students still need 8 to 10 hours of sleep at this age for their development. And I think our survey results, students here were probably sleeping 6 hours, 7 hours. So sleep is really important. Sleep deprivation really can be associated with depression and anxiety. So it's really important. We talk a lot about sleep, and I think that's important to be mindful of. I think it's also, we all live such busy lives right now. And like I said, in this hybrid model where we're all on screens and working at home at the same time, when your child does want to talk to you, really try to stop what you're doing and engage with them. If they just come home and they say, I hate school, and they run up to their room, try to stop what you're doing, go upstairs, sit down, talk with them about it. Like, what is it? Where is that coming from, those feelings? So it's hard to do. I know certainly in my house as well, but really try to listen to what your child is telling you. And this is a great opportunity, being high school freshmen, to really start to explore what your child's interests and strengths are. We see kids that come to the high school and we'll start new activities or join new clubs or participate in new things. And that's exactly what this is for. And again, even though this is a different time, we're trying to get our clubs up and running, most likely virtually, but try to get some activities going so that way students can start to explore their interests and see what's out there. So again, these are just some tips that the folks at Challenge Success really encourage high schools to focus on and parents to focus on, so that way students have kind of a healthy, well-rounded high school career. So with that, I'm going to introduce Mr. Becker to talk a little bit about what his role is at the high school.
Thank you, Stephanie. So for those who I haven't met yet, I am Russ Becker. I'm the school adjustment counselor. And when I claim that I'm the school adjustment counselor, the first question that is always asked of me is, what exactly are you and what does that do? The first couple assumptions that I usually get are that I'm the school's chiropractor or claims adjuster. Neither of those things are true. It is just kind of a bit of an odd title for my role. So for, I guess in plain terms, as many people might understand, I am a school social worker whose primary goal is addressing the mental health needs of all of our students. So in a typical year, we've recognized that many of our students struggle significantly with some pretty legitimate mental health topics, whether it be anxiety, depression, some stress. There's a lot of things that happen in our students' life that really does affect them in a challenging and a negative way. Unfortunately, given the environment and given everything that's happened over the past handful of months, that's only been exacerbated, I think, tenfold. And we're really seeing just the effects right now of what's been happening. So please keep me in mind. I am happy to help in any way that I can. I work one-on-one with students, I work with families, and I work to connect students and families with additional resources outside of this building should you need it. So here is both my email and my phone number should you ever want to get in touch. I have had situations in the past where families weren't really sure if I was the right person or if their students' needs were rising to the level that maybe I should or would get involved. What I always say is reach out and we'll figure it out together. If I'm not the right person, then I'm more than happy to connect you with somebody who is, or probably far more often than not, if you have any questions, I'm always happy to at least meet with your student and begin the process of making sure that they're more supported. And I'll say as well, if you forget the email, if you forget the number, just say that you want to get in touch with the gregarious guy who yelled at you during a webinar. Chances are somebody's going to point you in my direction anyway. So one of the things that I did want to point you to, which is coming up, is our second iteration of the Signs of Suicide curriculum. So for those who had students in the 7th grade, you may remember the first go around of this. We do 3 separate iterations of this in the 7th, 9th, and 12th grade, each of which are tailored for students at that specific age group. So if you remember, 7th grade was just kind of an introduction to the topic, the idea, and what some of the resources are. This 9th grade edition, typically speaking, meets students exactly where they're at. It talks about mental health, depression, and suicide from a high school context, and then what some resources and what some appropriate avenues might be with students who are struggling. This year, we're going to have to tailor it a little bit differently as well, just because the world in general is so different, and we felt that we definitely wanted to update our presentation so that we could address all of the things that our students are probably thinking of or discussing at this time. More information will be shared about this in the upcoming week or so, but at any point, should you have any questions about this presentation or about anything in regards to your students' well-being and mental health, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask.
Thanks, Russ. Hi, folks. Eric Ornberg here. I'm going to just talk a little bit about what guidance does at the high school level. And I think just to precurse that, we've talked a number of times as a guidance staff here that without question, this is the most challenging start in public education history. And term 1 of this experience for students that are transitioning to a new building is a tremendous challenge. And it's a challenge to support kids as well. For an example, I had a teacher reach out about a student earlier this week, and I happened to look outside the window. the student was on a mask break, it was very easy to just go outside and talk to him. That doesn't happen as easily now with the absence of reading periods and times where we can actually connect with kids one-on-one and face-to-face. But it's certainly something that we're trying to negotiate and navigate. So we recognize how hard it is for you as parents. We recognize how hard it is for these ninth grade kids to come into the building. And the foundation of what we really want to do, that I think that holds up all of the academic stuff, is self-advocacy and having these kids try to find the best way to get their questions answered. Part of what we do in guidance, I think this is a transition year, is the best way to describe it, is trying to get kids situated academically. I'm going to share with you some feedback that we got from the freshmen and a survey that we gave them during advisory. A teacher who retired recently had a great quote: students have their entire lives to learn. They only get to grow up once. And I think that that has certainly stuck with me, especially when it comes to the ninth graders as they come over here and they're trying to learn from 7 different teachers with 7 different expectations. They're trying to navigate the hybrid world. And we're trying to teach them how to self-advocate, how to ask for extra help, how to ask for clarity if they need that. None of it can be assumed in a hybrid world, but it's certainly something that we want to help them with. Stephanie, could you go to the next slide? So this is some of the feedback, which I think is great, that we got from some of the ninth graders. And these are not cherry-picked statements. These are more definitive statements from what the masses said when we sent the survey out during advisory. Describe the transition. It's certainly more work and it's stressful, but I like high school better than middle school. Overwhelming at first, but it's getting better. And one kid was very honest in describing the transition as rocky. And this is part of what we see in a typical year, is that the first month or two, there is a transition as the students are learning to get polished to the expectations of the high school. Some of the struggles that the kids identified: the change in workload from 8th grade, the expectations, when assignments are due. In the old days, kids went to math class, math was due then. In this world, they have to upload something by midnight or by 10 o'clock. And those times can be hard to manage. That's certainly a high school expectation that comes with experience. Some of the successes kids talked about was the communication with teachers, staying organized. I've been pretty successful with remote learning. Sometimes I prefer to be in class, but I think remote learning isn't bad, and sometimes I prefer it. So some students out there might actually enjoy that component of it. I think what we're experiencing for all of us here is remote learning with the luxury of 2 days of in-person. And this last statement from a student saying that how they brought their grade up and how they're trying to set a goal for the rest of the term and for the rest of the school year. This is great feedback for us to get from the kids, and it certainly takes time for the kids to become polished to the expectations of the high school, but we're seeing that. Part of our job as a guidance counselor is to help the kids navigate that and tell them, like, a middle school expectation is different from a high school expectation in this way, and that if you have a question about something, it's fine to reach out to the teacher. I've been meeting with a couple of freshmen this week, and one of the components that we want is that they have the ability to know when extra help is if they need it. How is that being posted in Google Classroom by each of the teachers, so they know how to navigate that. I've asked the kids that, and some kids are still struggling with some of those components, and other kids that are figuring it out as they go. Students can set up appointments with us. We're using a new virtual component here called You Can Book Me. And again, part of what we do in the guidance office is to deliver the curriculum, talk about ninth grade. You're going to hear a little bit more in a bit about permanent record and grades and GPA and things like that. We are doing our best to try to meet with every kid either through Zoom or in person in November and December. That's one of our goals as a department. I've had a few of those and they've gone fantastic. And another component of our connection will be Mr. Becker, like he talked about in the Science of Suicide program. I think I'm going to hand it off to Mrs. Patton now.
I'm going to talk a little bit about graduation requirements. So This is not something that you need to worry about too much right now, but I do just want to go over them so you have a general understanding of what the expectations are before students graduate. So to start, students need 115 credits to graduate. Every year, if assuming a student is fully scheduled, so taking 7 classes, they will earn 35 credits. So if you multiply 35 times 4, you can see that that number, I believe it's 140, is many more credits than they need in order to graduate. And the reason that we do that is so that if something were to happen, if they had credit loss in a class for any reason, they do have that cushion there so that they're not going to be getting close to that 115. So you can see the breakdown by subject. English, 20 credits or 4 years of English. Social studies has 15, science 15, math 15, although many of our students do take 20 credits of math. There are some colleges and universities that do require a 4th year of math. Wellness, 10 credits with a semester each year. World language, 10 credits of the same language. And then visual applied arts, 5 credits or 1 full year. The visual and applied arts apply to more courses than just your typical art classes. So those include anything in the business and technology category, culinary arts, journalism, yearbook. So it's really easy to pick up those credits by the time that they are seniors. I think that it's, what's interesting to see is that it really just is English that requires the 4 years. So students, as they become juniors and seniors, they're going to have a lot more options of things they want to take. So it's really not until junior and senior year that we want to be looking at the graduation requirements, but we wanted to share them with you today just so you have a general understanding. I want to talk a little bit about a transcript and what that means. So a transcript is a record of academic achievement similar to a report card, but without comments. So on a transcript, it will list all of the courses that your son or daughter has taken from 9th grade until their senior year. So it'll show the names of the courses, the course level, whether it's a C1, C2 honors or AP course, and then the final year grade for each of those courses. So that last piece, that final year grade, that's really important to note. Individual term grades are not on the transcript. So essentially the only grade that's on the transcript is the average of the 4 terms throughout the year. And I think that's really important to know as a freshman or as a freshman parent, because term 1 freshman year, those grades are probably not going to be, the highest grades of their entire high school academic career. There's a ton of room for improvement within this year and certainly moving forward. When students become seniors and we start working with them on future planning, and I look back at a student's transcript, without fail, there's usually an upward trend from 9th grade through 12th grade of improvement as students kind of learn those academic skills and as students get more opportunities to take electives that are interesting to them. So again, final year grades only. If they have a tough term, it doesn't appear on the transcript. It's a permanent record, so we hold on to it for 60 years. So if at any point your child needs access to it, it's something we keep here in the guidance office. And just as an example, this is what a transcript looks like. So you can see it's broken down by grade, and again, just those final year grades. You may notice that senior year, you actually can see the individual term grades. The reason that it's broken down that way is that if students are choosing to apply to college, oftentimes the colleges are requiring to see the individual term grades. At the end of the senior year, only the final grade would be reflected, but that's why you're seeing it broken down by term there. But again, for this sample student as well, you can see kind of the improvement over the years and, taking courses at different levels based on their interest.
Hi, everyone. Ann Lodge speaking. One of the things that you might have just noticed on the transcript that Amanda was showing was that at the bottom was listed a grade point average, or in fact, 2 grade point averages. So we wanted to share a little bit of information with you about how Medfield calculates the grade point average for students. Again, not so that you can focus on it solely at this point, but so that you have an understanding of how Medfield operates. So we actually calculate both an unweighted and a weighted GPA. And When we are doing that, we are assigning a numerical value to the final letter grade that's earned in a course, and then averaging those numerical values of grades 9, 10, and 11 to come up with the cumulative GPA for students. I think a lot of times when we're working with freshmen or sometimes working with juniors and they're reflecting back on their high school experience, they are sometimes sort of wondering, like, what happens, why they think maybe only the junior year is counting, but when in fact we are actually taking a look at the GPA across 9, 10, and 11, and hopefully being able to highlight that upward trend that Amanda talked about a little bit. We do operate on a GPA scale on a 4.0 for both the weighted and the unweighted. And for students who take a course at the honors or the AP level at any point throughout high school, they are given a bump of a 0.8 when we're calculating the GPA. So for example, if a student takes a world history class freshman year and they're taking that course at the C1 or the C2 level and they earn a B, that's the equivalent of a 3.0 being factored in for that course. But if they take that course at the honors level, it would be the equivalent of a 3.8 factored in. So that's how we're calculating the GPA on a year-by-year basis. The nice thing for your sons and daughters right now is that everything's a complete blank slate, right? They have a lot of time between now and the end of the year to work towards certain goals so that they can build their GPA between grades 9, 10, and 11. One of the other pieces that comes into play freshman year that we want you to be aware of is that the MCAS is something that is part of our graduation requirements here at the high school. And our freshmen take the biology MCAS, at the conclusion of their freshman year. So that will be slated for early June for them. And then they'll be done with their science MCAS requirement for high school graduation. As they move on to sophomore year, we'll have them take the ELA and the math MCAS. And again, that is part of the graduation requirement. In terms of other standardized testing that will come up throughout high school, sophomore year, we will expect to offer the pre-ACT. So it's a practice ACT exam for students that might be used to prepare for the ACT exam that will come up for the college admissions process. And then as a junior, we would offer the PSAT, again, which is the practice SAT, in preparation for the SAT come the end of their junior year. Students have the opportunity to take both SATs and ACTs across their junior and senior year for college admission testing. And as we get closer to that point in time for your sons and daughters, we'll certainly have further conversations around that and what's appropriate and the appropriate timelines for your children. And if your sons or daughters are taking AP exams at any point during their junior or senior year, they would be expected to sit for the AP exam in that subject area at the conclusion of the course. Right now, though, as we're sort of looking at where your sons and daughters are currently, we wanted to make sure that you as parents are aware of the types of supports and resources that are available to all students as they're continuing to adjust to the academic expectations at the high school and learn how to navigate what resources are available. Certainly the most important place to receive help is through extra help with your sons and daughters teachers. They are going to be the best possible resource when they're looking for support in a particular course. Extra help is offered by all teachers once on each cohort day. So either a Monday or Tuesday, or a Thursday and a Thursday or a Friday. So twice during the week, and that does happen via Zoom, but students are certainly welcome to reach out to their teachers at any other point so that they can make individual connections with them so they have an opportunity to seek support from their teachers. They are the best source of support. But beyond that, we do have other resources that are available if you're finding that your child needs additional academic support in certain areas. We do maintain a peer tutor list here in the guidance office, and we have a number of upperclassmen who volunteer their time to help support your sons and daughters in academic content areas. All tutoring this year is taking place via Zoom, but we do maintain that list here in the guidance office. So if you feel like your son and daughter might benefit from working with a peer tutor, please make sure that you're reaching out to your child's guidance counselor and we can share the list with you. And then one other great resource that's available for all students is our Writing Center. So our writing center is actually staffed by 2 English teachers, Mrs. Garcia and Miss Ren Burgess, and they both have a lot of experience, certainly in the English world, but also in publishing and editing. And they are offering virtual appointments for students throughout the course of every week. So the way that that's structured for writing support is that each Friday, an email is sent out to all students with the appointments and the ability to book appointments for the upcoming week. So the way that they are asking students to sign up for a time is that they will ask them to meet on their remote days so that they can meet via Zoom. So on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday, there are 4 20-minute slots available during their period 5 time. So that's in the 11 o'clock hour. They also have availability after school, 2 appointments after school for students, and there are 2 slots available on remote Wednesdays from 12:30 to 12:50. So they are making themselves available, and they are a great resource as students are working on their writing assignments, whether it's for English class or history, maybe even helping to write up some of those biology labs if they need some additional support. They'll do everything from the brainstorming process to helping to edit a final draft of an essay. So it really is a fabulous support that we recommend that all freshmen take advantage of at some point during the course of their freshman year.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about helpful ways or strategies to stay organized. So we know that with the increased challenges at high school and with the hybrid learning model, one question that comes up a lot for grade 9 students is, how do I manage all of my work? How do I stay organized day to day? So I have a few tips outlined here that I will briefly go through, but I think it's important to note that every student's a little bit different. So some strategies work really well for one student, may not work for another. So I think for many, 9th grade is a time of experimenting with some of these different strategies and figuring out what seems to work best for you. So as far as staying organized, we do recommend the Zoom link keeper, which I know a lot of students are using, and I've linked it here in our presentation, but it is also on the Hybrid Hub website under student resources. And this is a document where students can save the link to each of their classes across each day of the week. So rather than having to go in every time on their remote day they sit down for a class, they can have it all in one document as sort of a quick access bookmark reference. And then another tip for staying organized is we really encourage students when they sit down to begin homework to pull that information out of the computer and try and use hard copy to-do lists. So there are often many screens going and a lot to keep track of. It can be really helpful for students to either print out on a piece of paper. Some students like using a whiteboard right up on their wall or one of those big desk calendars to go through and focus on what are the assignments I actually need to do today. And let me pull that out of my computer and really list it out for myself. So there is a template there that students can use to help with tracking that. And then as far as being productive at home, so we really encourage students rather than being comfortable on their couch to get themselves to a desk or the kitchen table or a workspace where they can really be as alert as possible. We also recommend working in shorter periods of time. So it's really hard to sit down for 2 to 3 hours and be really productive. So we encourage roughly 1 hour increments and then making sure to take breaks. And especially taking breaks from the screen when it's a beautiful day like today, trying to get some fresh air and some sunshine. Another strategy, setting alarms on your cell phone or a clock within the house. This helps students to kind of stay on task as they go from work to break and when they're being productive at home. And then lastly, I know we talked about this before, but I can't highlight enough just the importance of sleep in terms of helping to be able to focus and really function well during the day. And part of winding down for sleep often includes taking a break from screens and taking some time to relax or unwind at least an hour before bed. So I've linked in the bottom screen here. We also have a summary of some of these strategies. It's a PowerPoint It's on the Hybrid Hub website as well, and it's linked at the bottom of that slide. And then as far as communication, so in our virtual world this year, there are a lot of different forms of communication coming at all of you. So we wanted to summarize them overall. So as far as teachers, they are most frequently using Google Classroom. So that is a wealth of knowledge, your students' account in Google Classroom, including, upcoming assignments, grades, when their extra help sessions are, that's listed under class resources. And then Aspen is another area, where teachers will post grades and assignments, but primarily Google Classroom. Second, in terms of the high school news, we encourage you to keep an eye out. There's a Monday news flash email, comes out every week. And that's a great way to kind of see what's going on in general in the high school. That comes out from the principal secretary. And in terms of our department for guidance, I've listed the ways we communicate there. I think our top method is through our guidance website, where we post updates and a general overview of the type of work we're doing with students each year. We do post on Twitter. We will send emails out to students. We have our virtual appointment books, which we've emailed out to students. And as your child moves through high school, we will begin working with them also through Naviance, which is a college and career planning software, and through Google Classroom. So a lot of different methods of communication. I think, if you take away one thing from this, it's that we want to be connected with you as much as possible. So we encourage you to check out these links, but also to know that we are here as a support, and you can certainly feel free to reach out to us at any time.
So we'd like to open it up for you folks, if you have any questions, to type them in the chat for us to take a look at. As we said, this is a very atypical year. This is like no other that any of us have ever experienced. And it's definitely much different for our students. So we are all just trying to do the best we can to support our students with what their needs are. I feel like we are trying to provide our freshmen more executive function skills. They come to Medfield High School from Blake Middle School, and they missed their last few years of 8th grade. But we are trying to get them up to speed with what they need to prepare themselves for high school, so that way they can stay organized and on top of things. But we know it's not easy for many of our students. So I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint for a moment. Mrs. Lodge, can you see if we have any questions in the chat?
Yes, there is. There are actually two. The first one is, have any clubs besides Stuco opened up yet? So I'm happy to take that one on too. So at this point, there hasn't been a lot of club activity, but we are in the process of setting up some sort of a virtual club day. So Mr. Sperling, one of our assistant principals, sort of oversees a lot of the clubs and organizations. So he is in the process of setting that opportunity up to share out with certainly all freshmen and all students. So more information will be coming about how to sign up for clubs hopefully in the coming week or two. And then our second question is, thanks for taking the time to present. We're very happy to. Have the organizational tools, like use of a paper calendar, sitting at a desk, et cetera, been communicated to the students? Elise, would you like to take that?
Sure, yes. So those strategies, we do have those templates and that information posted for students in their resource page on the Hybrid Hub website. But it is also something that has been coming up in our individual work with students. So some students that we've been in communication with already, we've been working on these strategies. And it's also, I know Mr. Ornberg mentioned, we've begun individual meetings with all of the 9th graders for November, December. That has been coming up there as well. So it's certainly something we are happy to share anytime. And if your child is struggling with organization, we'd be happy to connect with them about that.
One of the other questions here also pertains to clubs. Do students need to have a Facebook account to join a club? And the answer to that would be no. There are definitely clubs that have Facebook pages. So I think that is one of the ways in which they might communicate with students at this point, since things are mostly remote, but they certainly are not required to have a Facebook account to join a club. The virtual day will be hosted through the school, not through Facebook. And then one other question here, it says a source of frustration, oops, I just lost it. A source of frustration for my student is that teachers post homework at different times. Is there any chance there could be a school-wide time when all homework can be posted? For example, all teachers need to post homework by 3 o'clock. Sometimes teachers post at 8 and up to 10 o'clock at night.
And I'll comment on this. So we, I'm the department chair for the guidance office, but we have weekly leadership meetings with all the department chairs of every subject and the administration. And it is something that we talk about often because, as we're talking about all of these things today, I think one of the most challenging things for us as counselors, probably for you folks as parents, and certainly for the kids is they have 7 different teachers, and often they all have different policies, practices, things in their class that they're doing. So we are trying to streamline things as much as we can. One of the things I think we talk about a lot is with the homework or the work being posted. Oftentimes a teacher may post something in the evening, but that doesn't always mean it's due the next day. Sometimes, the teacher is trying to get some work done and they're posting things so the student knows about it, but it may not be due until Friday or the following week when they see that cohort again. So I totally understand how it can feel sometimes like, oh my gosh, my math teacher just posted something at 6 o'clock at night. I would encourage your child to reach out to teachers with questions, especially when things like that do occur. Reach out to us as the guidance counselor, so that way we can communicate those concerns with teachers as well. And you folks reach out to teachers as well. We are definitely talking about these things, whether it's the homework, the Google Classrooms, the Zoom links, all of this. And we recognize that with this, again, this atypical year that we're in, it's added a whole nother layer of executive functioning challenges for our students and for many adults as well. So we will keep having those conversations, and I will definitely bring that back to the leadership group as well.
Thank you. Another question here, could you please discuss National Honor Society? Mr. Ornberg, would you like to take that one?
Sure. So students that are eligible to join the National Honor Society are informed of that based off of their GPA. Usually in February of sophomore year, they have to have 3 semesters under their belt. So it's usually a sophomore year. The GPA gets recalculated in February, and then students are invited to apply. And when they apply, they usually get recommendation letters, someone to speak on their character, the amount of community service hours, and any leadership positions. And then a panel of teachers will process the applications that are for all 10th, 11th, and 12th grade kids that are eligible. And then NHS letters to students saying they've been accepted in the society usually go out, I think sometime, usually in March. And then I think they have an induction ceremony at the end of the school year.
Great, thank you. My daughter mentioned that for the past 3 weeks, she's had quizzes for all core classes on the same day. Is this standard protocol?
So I would just like to add, that's another thing we're talking about at our leadership team as well. Up until I would say, a week or so ago, we've been talking about how to do assessments with students, and it's really challenging when you have half your students on Monday and Tuesday and the other half on Thursday and Friday, and to give a assessment, we hate to give assessments when the students are here because you lose that time with the students for instruction, but rather at the same time to administer a true assessment to gather information of what the student is learning and what they know. It's important to do when they're here. So we've always kind of had a practice, like 2 tests in a day. I think what's getting challenging is what's a test, what's a quiz, what's a quest, what's a gizmo, like they're all called something different. And sometimes when we bring this up to teachers, a teacher might say, oh yeah, well, mine was just a little check-in and it was only worth 5 points. But to a student, when they add up all of those things they have that day, it does feel like a lot. So we are continuing these conversations. We are trying to figure out best practices for assessments. I know some departments are trying not to do kind of any live assessments, but do everything on their virtual days. But again, these are conversations we're having as well, because we are feeling that, we are feeling the kids' pain in that regard as well. So again, that's another topic that I will bring back to our leadership team.
Thanks. Given the emphasis on having downtime, playtime, etc., do teachers take into account the time students have to spend on homework and yet have time for other activities? Does anyone want to take that one?
Well, I'll just add that, because again, this came up at leadership on Tuesday. It's hard to know right now what's homework, traditional homework, and what is just the work the students are assigned to do in their non-cohort days. So I feel like some classes are giving homework, kind of your traditional homework between, if your students in cohort A on Monday, homework is what's due the next day on Tuesday. But if a teacher assigns work on Wednesday for kind of the week for both cohorts that kind of is due the following Wednesday, it may take a student X amount of hours, but they have the whole week to do it. So I feel like the term homework this year, it's a little strange. What's classwork, what's homework, what's virtual work, what's just their work? And I think it's one of our priorities to help students try to navigate that and organize themselves. It's definitely been a conversation among our Challenge Success team about the balance of time between schoolwork and activities. We've done a lot of work in a normal year. We've done a lot of work over the past few years about how much homework do our students have? How much are they, how much time are they spending every night on homework? Because again, in a normal year, we know our students are busy. When we talk about clubs and activities, one thing Mr. Parga always says to families in a normal year is, if your child's going home at 2:07 and doing nothing, please call us. Like, we want to find out what they're interested in, what they like to do. Medfield High School is usually a very active place after school, whether it's sports, whether it's theater, whether it's clubs, art, whatever it might be. So we have done a lot of talking, especially through Challenge Success, about finding that balance. What's too much, what's appropriate. And these are conversations that we will continue to have as we try to really work to create a culture and a climate where students can do these activities and, kind of have a fun high school career, but are able to keep up and maintain the level of academic, achievement that they should be.
Thank you. My son is in cohort D. How will he participate in community service? Mr. Ornberg?
Well, yeah, sure. Just so we're clear on this, we often get this question quite a bit. Community service is not a graduation requirement here at Medfield High School. There are clubs and activities, National Honor Society being one of them, where students do have to perform a minimum of community service, but there is no high school graduation requirement for community service. If students are interested in community service, when the virtual club day comes, there is a number of service-based groups that will most likely be looking for volunteers. And again, we've used the term traditional year quite a bit. Kids have done Christmas in the City in the past. They have done, we've had a community teens club, Warriors for the Homeless. We've had plenty of opportunities for kids to do that, which is always great because it does round out their high school experience. But just wanted to make sure people knew that service is not a requirement to graduate.
I think that wraps up the questions that we have open in the chat.
Great. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming today. As I said in my email, this has been recorded and I will share that with families, all families. But so if you talk to other friends that weren't able to join us today, know that I'll probably share that tomorrow But we really do appreciate you taking the time to join us. We recognize that this is definitely a challenging year for our students, and we're just trying to support the students as best we can. So as we said, we're trying to meet with all of our ninth graders in the next 2 months to have a individual check-in with everybody to see how they're going. So feel free to mention to your child later, oh, did you sign up for your check-in with your guidance counselor? We've had a good amount of students sign up already, but we will keep after those that haven't signed up yet because we really do look forward to meeting them, to hearing about what they're interested in, maybe what they're struggling with, so that way we can help them this year and then over the next 4 years of high school. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great afternoon. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks so much.